People say it's like, and I don't mean literal like hallucination, I'm saying reality is so intense. The colors of the light hitting leaves in an oak tree or flowers in a field or the ocean or a sunset or innocent children and beauty and just the beauty of women. I mean, I see beautiful women now and I don't even think about sex with them. I just at awe at the life force and the beauty just crackling. I see life. I see the universe. And you've got to open yourself up to it to really realize. People like they always say, I want to go to space. I want to go to space. You're in space. I want to go to Mars. I want to go to Venus. I want to go to Neptune. I want to see these things. You do. You're on a planet. You're on an incredibly rare planet with giant oceans and incredible life forms and beauty. You're in the universe. You walk outside and you're so close to a sun, it burns your skin. We're bathed in a wide spectrum of different particles. But we recognize beauty. The firmament is the evidence of God. The architect. People say, oh, the Luciferians call their God the architect. A counterfeit of the real architect, the real great architect. You look what the New World Order builds. It builds horrible, ugly things that malfunction. Trying to always be God, always saying they're God, always saying they're going to take over our will. That's not what God does. God doesn't try to take over your will. God tries to empower you, but in a non-destructive way. So you can stare out into the universe anytime you want. You're on a planet with a thin ribbon of gases on the surface and all the mountains and all the people that came before us and lived and struggled and fought. And that's why it's the greatest sin the New World Order commits, not just killing and diseasing our young, but attacking our DNA, our future generations, everything that is the true blessings, the family. The system is waging unending war. Huge news coming up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on this day after Easter worldwide transmission. Let me just give you a smattering of what's coming up, and I must cover all of this today in this little short segment. Let me just give you a preview. But I want to just briefly go back to the issue of pediatric cancers, depending on which statistical grouping you look at. On average, are up about 10,000% since the 1950s. You heard me, 10,000%. What's the percentage increase? If we were 1 in 25,300 and change, neurological disorder classed as autism, and now it's 1 in 60 or 1 in 50 something, it varies. That's a multi-thousand increase as well. Diabetes, depending on the type, but the most common type is a 3,000% increase in the general public. Hispanics, it's even higher. I mean, I go to public places and see 30-year-old Hispanics with their arms and legs sawed off. And I don't need to ask them, but I have them like, oh, how are you doing? While they're sitting there waiting for a prescription. You got diabetes? Yeah, they may have to chop my other leg off. Oh, really? They tell you not to drink that big fat Diet Coke you're drinking? Doctor tell you not to do that? No. They told me to drink this. Yeah, you might actually find out that's worse than sugar for a diabetic. But you know what? I'm not going to give you medical advice. I actually do that. And it's not because, you know, I see somebody with their legs sawed off. They're just all over the place. Hispanics everywhere, legs, arms sawed off. Just drive down the town, drive by bus stops instead of just thinking about yourself. Start looking at the bus stops, and you'll probably pass 10 bus stops before you run into a Hispanic person with their legs or arms cut off from diabetes. I just happen to notice things. You know, I go to a church. I just happen to notice. Let me see how many kids they're soft killing in here. Oh, there's one right there. Okay, they're not killing us. Then where is it coming from? Oh, I just happen to have all these documents where they admit they're doing it. And that's coming up later. It's an article at Infowars.com. Peak civilization, MIT research team predicts global economic collapse and population decline. And they've got a... You know, I'm sorry. They have a 90+%. Scroll down to MIT's graph. This is from MIT. That's a 90+% decline in the population. How's that sound for you there on some of those graphs? They've got different predictions. Services per capita, population, global population. No, global population is the blue one. Yeah, that's over 90%. You like that? You like that? That's why they're teaching your kids there's no oil left or no coal left. That's why they're teaching you that living is bad, having kids are bad, because they're getting everybody ready with the racial, psychological idea and memory. And they got shows on history, Discover, History Science, PBS, all the major textbooks, college, high school, are getting everybody ready to die. So when they release the bioweapons and the rest of it and cut off the third world supplies and huge wars break out in Bedlam, it won't matter in the West because we'll be so mesmerized by TV and drugs, legal and illegal. Now, again, it's a total diabolical plan. It's totally documented in such voluminous piles, and I need to calmly present this. But sometimes I think, well, no, you shouldn't be calm about this. You've been successful because you are being real and freaking out. Because, see, I'm freaking out. I can't go to a church with 100 people in it without seeing kids who you can tell are struggling for their lives. I'll just leave it at that, because of these New World Order people. And I don't feel too friendly towards the New World Order, but my hatred and my disgust is nothing compared to my love. And it's not because I'm a good person. I know people, oh, he cares about... Who doesn't? Like, if I don't care about that kid, I don't care about mine. And it's not some conscious thing, but that's why I'm designed that way. You know, when you got 10,000+ percentage point increases in pediatric cancers, I think every day how I don't do enough to keep my kids away from GMO and the rest of it. I'm a piece of filth is what I am. I'm a piece of garbage. I'm not doing enough. I'm not focused enough. I'm too comfortable having all this go on around me. We'll be right back.
We're on the mark.
Okay, so my final little message to the New World Order people is this. You are not going to get away with what you're doing. God, the universe, justice is going to have victory over you. You're not going to disease the genetic genome of humanity and the planet while playing God and posing as the saviors of the earth while you run around and engage in your psychopathic activities and get away with it. You are not going to release your future bioweapons and get away with it unscathed. You are not going to reduce our population by over 90% and end up getting away with it, because we're aware of you, we're exposing you, and the full horror of what you're doing is so huge. I understand that most people can't come to grips with it, but it's never a majority that prevails over evil. And we are getting the message out. We are reaching out to our fellow humans. And the organizations are being formed, the ideas are being developed, the information and the countermeasures are being deployed, and we have only begun to fight. In fact, our new motto is going to be taken from John Paul Jones, father of the U.S. Navy. He says, I have just begun to fight, or I have only just begun to fight. To we have just begun to fight. In fact, when you guys pull up the John Paul Jones famous quote for me, I want to make sure I'm getting it word for word exactly right. And another saying that he had was win or die. You know, victory or death from Colonel Travis at the Alamo. But it is death if we don't have victory over these people. It is enslavement. It is bondage. It's dying those thousands of little cowardly deaths every day. And I think about how much the globalists enjoy people having deformed children, how much they enjoy children dying excruciating deaths, how much they enjoy the troops breathing DU and then coming home and having children with incredibly painful malformations and disorders and diseases, and how much they just enjoy going to work every day. The globalists talk about their eugenics and how much they enjoy it. They really enjoy killing people in horrible, painful, soul-sucking, life-destroying illnesses. Of course, many times these painful experiences actually only make people grow more spiritually, so God turns that to good. But it is just unspeakable what the New World Order does, and I want them to know, I see what you do. I see you playing in the guts of our children. I see you running around with wanton rapine, with bloodthirst, hurting the innocents, as all of your ilk have done throughout history. And I am fully aware of what you're doing. And you will be brought very, very low. I have not yet begun to fight, was uttered in reply to a cheerful British taunt. You know, that was when both ships were on fire, but the bigger British ship was sinking his. And he still didn't give up. And that ended up, their powder room blew up, and then he got the big victory. That happened over and over again with John Paul Jones. Amazing. Amazing, all those real stories from the Revolutionary War. There were cases where he'd fight 5 ships, and all 5 of the other ships would be bigger than his and win. Because you've got to go straight at them. You've got to come straight on. And that's the real power lies in being outnumbered. The real power lies from having nothing left to lose. That's where it is. And saying, I am committed. You're on fire, you're sinking. Strike your colors. I have not yet begun to fight. And then members of the crew wanted to give up, and he turned around, pulled his sword out, and said, I'm going to start chopping you up if you give up. And that was just fighting because they were tired of the oppressive British rule, basically having double the taxes on people in the colonies than they had back in England. They were just tired of the corruption and the swaggering government bureaucrats and the swaggering police. That was just because they didn't like being bullied. Imagine if the founders would have known that they were being injected with cancer viruses or their children being deformed. I mean, that's how sick these globalists hate America and the West so much that the Romans would come into an area that resisted them and kill everyone and tear down the emplacements and throw expensive salt into the earth so that they couldn't grow crops inside the walled cities, so that they couldn't down the road have another siege. You know, in case they didn't catch everybody and people ran to the hills and later went back to the fort. When they came back, the well was poisoned. The areas inside the fort where you could grow some crops, the earth was salted. Well, the globalists are salting our loins. Sperm count's down by almost 90%. It's like 87% last number I saw a few years ago from the Centers for Disease Control. They're like, gee, we don't know why it's happening. Same numbers, similar numbers in Europe. Women's eggs and ovaries are just fried on average. If you're going to have children, you better get started early because that stuff really kicks in later. Your body's resilient, but not that resilient. The IQs are dropping. The life expectancies are dropping. Every disease and neurological disorder is just turbocharged right now. And it's going to get crazier and crazier. The media's like, okay, well, it's not the vaccines because Bill and Melinda Gates say so, but gee, the reporters are like, my kid got the shot and can't walk or talk now. He was 18 months old and healthy and happy, but they say it in the shot, but he had a convulsion on the way home, and Bobby doesn't talk anymore. And my neighbor's kid, same thing. You really, government? It's 1 in 50-something now. It was 1 in 25,000. What's going on? The government's like, we'll have a local jog, a race, and you'll